So my name is Rabea Nawaz. I'm the principal of TIG Archtexx. Gar, do you want to introduce yourself?
So I'm Gar and Rabea. I'm a principal with TIG Archtexx.
I think there's tremendous amount of room still left. I think the role of the CFO is constantly evolving and changing, and the industry is constantly evolving and changing. And with that, I think you constantly have to be innovating yourself and looking at the situation in that way. So absolutely, I think innovation is never something that you see like I've done and I'm on top of innovation now. I think it's something that constantly evolves as your role evolves, as the climate's changing, the world's kind of changing, innovation is changing.
So I think just to build on that, the CFO from Majid Al Futtaim this morning talked about the CFO being kind of the guardian of innovation. So he's got to ring fence funds and make sure that's available to an organization to do it, because the biggest challenge that you have is contention for resources. And the person who holds the keys is the CFO. And typically in that situation, if a CFO decides just to bucket innovation in with everything else, it's the first thing to get cut. So the way we look at it is that the CFO can create the space for innovation to happen in an organization, and that's the key enabling thing that they can do. I guess the CEO, if you take the overall leadership and the direction, so that driving force, the captain of the ship bringing it along. If I take as an example, around the world yachting, right? So you've got a number of different roles there, key roles, right? Captain of the ship bringing it along, but you've got other key roles as well who are looking forward in different directions. So when the CEO goes, where do we go, right? Who does he ask? He asks the guy who's up the top of the mast who can see where you're going, because he can look forward and do it. And that's where the CFO could play that role. There are other roles in the organization who could equally play that too. But the opportunity is there for the CFO to have that visionary role, to have that foresight, to look at what's happening. And it's really grounded in the reality of the financials of the organization and where it comes from.
So yes, we definitely had a very interactive session. So some of the challenges that the CFOs are facing today are, again, the lack of communication. There is the CFO branding. How the CFO's organization is viewed within the company. It is growing your business, is growing your people, your talent. I think that kind of becomes a challenge as well. Anything else?
I think one key thing that kept being reiterated today was growing people.
Yes.
So a second thing, that came through very clear, right? So focusing on growing people. Another thing that came through to me anyway was around being tech savvy.
Yes.
So our firm belief as an organization is that every business is now a digital business. Whether they think they are or not, they depend 100%. Some element of their business model depends on technology. If they don't understand it, they're not tech savvy, then the decision making and the level of investment with relation to this will be all off. So the prioritization around it, the framework around it, so a CFO that's not tech savvy, I don't think can be successful in this modern economy.
Absolutely.
I think the ability to build relationships. I think empathy is a big thing that's probably misunderstood in the world of business, but being able to understand and put yourself in somebody else's shoes and build empathetic relationships with others in the organization is, for me, that's a critical aspect of what a good CFO needs to be able to do. I think that strong vision, a drive, and leadership is the other thing. So leadership is another thing that came through very strongly today. That without those leadership skills, you can have the management skills, but you've got to lead a body of people who want to follow you and believe in the purpose that you're following.
And I think for a CFO it's very important, kind of going back to the innovation point, a CFO is very important for them to be the innovators, to be able to rethink the business model. Because in order to be able to survive and take the organization to the next level, they constantly have to go back to the drawing board and say, let me reassess what my business model is today. And for that, they have to be the innovators, they have to think outside the box. And I think somebody who's dynamic, who thinks outside the box, I think those are the qualities definitely that a CFO now needs. Traditionally, the CFO came from the accounting role. They were known as the numbers people, but now today's CFO is more longer term, is more strategic, is more dynamic.
So I think, I can speak for the two sessions we ran first. Yeah. I think the level of interaction was high. I think I think when people were attending, they heard workshop and talking shop, and they had to work. So people left our sessions and they were tired, but the level of engagement was high. And we tried, so this is an intentional thing, and I'm not sure how this will play out in the feedback, but we tried to push people to do something physical, which I think is really important. So they had to sort through things and organize and structure information. Then following on from that, we made them do something different, which takes your brain into different places. And we spent a lot of time looking and thinking and researching about how best to do brain-friendly change. So, and we directly challenge this today. So we force them to think in different ways. Some people it resonates very strongly with, other people resist it, but that's just the way your brain works. So I think on that front, I think that the level of interaction was fantastic. I mean, the level of engagement, the visionary CFOs, we had them in the room today, the guys who were looking forward. We did not have guys who were the accountants within the organization. They're not the people who came to this conference. So that's the first thing. I think with relation to the sessions that were on earlier on, I mean, there were some really interesting things. I think things about telling stories with data was kind of an underlying theme throughout. So this is no longer just give me the numbers. This is about telling me the story behind it, connect it in. The guy from Coca-Cola talked about the brand pyramid and connecting into that. Because if you're spending like 30-40% of if 30-40% of your cost is spent on marketing, then finance has to be baked into metrics that marketing is measuring. So I think that they were some of the key things, that the integration across these different functions, that was key.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think it was an absolutely wonderful. The whole thing was organized really well. The workshops were very amazing. You're right, to Gar's point, I think people were not expecting to do so much work in our workshop, but I think we got really good feedback from the verbal feedback that we received at the end of the workshops. They enjoyed that. Their brains were really kind of put out there, where they had to get up away, away from just listening to somebody and interact and put their input in. And I think people enjoyed that.
I think this is a fundamental thing, because sharing, so organizations that limit their employees to only discussing inside their four walls and within the confines of their organization and their team never gain those insights that you gain in a conference like this. So you get people from all over the industry, from multiple different industries. You take the energy industry has been doing scenario planning since the 70s, right? So they're seasoned professionals at doing that. Other industries are less mature. If you take some of the challenges that were discussed earlier on with relation to, say, a multinational corporation like GE versus a family-owned business that's emerging and beginning to formalize how it does business, sharing the insights across that can help those organizations accelerate. And equally, there are opportunities for multinationals to learn, because one of the things that I heard earlier on was that, so it's a lot of people with experience in the West coming here and bringing that experience, but some of that experience is valuable, some of that experience is not necessarily something that's good. So recognizing those things and understanding how you bring it and how you make it local here. Look, I can put my hand up and say, I don't understand how, but it's something that fascinates how we do business here, and it's certainly something that we're very aware of, like hyper aware of, taking something that works somewhere else and putting it here. Does it work? Will it work? Some of these tools, the methods and techniques we use. So I think that's the real value for me personally, was doing that, being able to try this here to see. For other participants, I think it's the ability to kind of share stories, because that's how we exchange information really within our communities and culture.
Yeah, and just to kind of add to that, I think another thing that was like I think a bit of an eye-opener for everybody was the fact that this was industry agnostic. This was for the CFOs. I think even as we were going through the challenges or the roles of the CFOs, one would think that maybe they're more specific to their industry. They're not. The role of the CFO across the industry, everybody kind of agreed to what the role was. It was definitely not more specific to industry. So I think that kind of resonated with everybody in terms of like the leadership role on what they're taking as well. And obviously, I think it was also a great like networking opportunity for everybody to kind of meet and get real insight and attend, like do hands-on workshops, get real insight into how companies are doing innovation and strategy. So I think it was a great event.
So we had some really good interactions with people here who were very interested in the model that we're proposing, because it's different. How we're doing it, how we're approaching the engagement, because we use something called service design to design services for the customer experience and things like that. I don't think anybody's ever applied those tools to look at the consulting model and what would be the best outcome for a client, and to put the client in the middle and wrap those services around it. So what do these interventions look like? Is it a mix of coaching, executive education, some consulting interventions, some tools, things like that? But things that are shorter interventions and things that are longer ones, but with a big leave behind. So the leave behind isn't just a big fat document, it's something much more tangible, much more realizable, and something that can be translated. So again, I bring it back to the infographics and the big visual stories that we try and tell. That's a great way of getting to a large group of people what it is that you're trying to achieve as a company, either the vision or the strategy or the roadmap or whatever it might be. I mean, that's kind of the key piece for me anyway.
Yeah. No, I think I concur with everything that Gar said. I think we had some really good conversations. I think there were a lot of people who, when there was an aha moment, like, okay, there are different tools that are there in the industry that we can use. And again, I think we're all about empowering people with those tools to be able to do that. So we had really good conversations. I think there'll be some follow-up meetings after this. So